Hey, it's 8:38 a.m. and I'm doing a video response from my friend video on YouTube about gang stalking. I believe this video is called, let me get just precise here. I'm in a chatty mood today. The video's name is called The Dry Moments of ATA's Life. She was basically mentioning in the beginning of her video about some of the things that go wrong in families, and I've always kind of observed different people's families from the best angle that I could. Mind you, I could not always get up close and personal with certain people, but there were some families that I did have like relationships with when I was a kid. Like I'd go to their house a lot and that sort of stuff, and then I remember kind of comparing and contrasting their family relationships and to mine. I also did this, of course, with television programs when I was a kid. I kept thinking, man, the Brady Bunch had everything. Not material things, but they just had their unrealistic expectations or whatever. But I think when people when it comes to families, and a lot of people bring kids into this world because it's just a thing to do. And like me, like when I was a kid, I used to visualize that cute little chubby kid that does all kinds of cute stuff, looks adorable, does adorable things, and I visualize this kid almost like a walking and talking baby doll. I'm very grateful that I had my son. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's in the light of my life. A lot of things, positive changes happened when I had my son. But a lot of people, they give birth to kids with this feeling of just ritualistic. I know my family, that's just the thing to do. My family had children, I'm going to have children, blah, 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 blah. And once they have these children, these kids really don't have any foundation or any sort of, guidelines or any sort of direction, at all. And the reason why is because most people do have kids for that reason. Just spontaneous whatever, and no real, and some people do the best they can, and a lot of times people do things only because they want to somehow improve their social status, or they use their kids to maybe they want to live vicariously through their children, and they sometimes do things to impress other people, and they'll use their kids as objects and tools to do that. I've seen that a lot, So throughout my life, I've observed people and noticed that, certain things that I did like in what they did, and then certain things I didn't like. And I know none of us are perfect on this earth, but there's certain things, that I think that I've seen in my life that I would never, ever want in my life, And, I would have been a better parent. I think I did a good job to the best of my ability raising my son, but I could have been a better parent had I not dealt with this dumb gang stalking bullshit and all the drama that went on, because my main source throughout my entire life has been my job, worrying about the tension that was being created by these freaks, and they literally just sucked up years of my life, and I was consumed with worry and anxiety for a good portion of my life. And the saddest part is that this happened while I was raising my kid, because that's not the life that I envisioned for my kid when I first had my son. Is like I wanted better things. I wanted to be more active and be with him. Like I wanted to be the mom that brought all the cookies to the school and stuff. I mean, there's been times where I was able to do not some stuff, I mean some things like that, but because they didn't allow baked goods, they were all picky about shit like that. But that's what I wanted. I wanted to be more active, but I was always worried about my job. Always, always, always. It consumed me, and I feel bad about that. And there are some parents that also can relate to that issue. And then they have some parents that, they have a stay-at-home parent, but their kids are kind of like off in the other room watching TV and whatever. And I did put my son in front of the TV a lot, mainly because I was sometimes just sitting stationary in one spot because I was consumed with anxiety all the time. And oftentimes, when I wasn't there for my son, it was because I was, it was just too much for me. I was, and it would have never happened that way had these people not been a part of my life. But anyway, you know, I know that when I was growing up, I displayed many talents and skills that people would always notice. Everyone outside of my family would take notice of it. Of course, my dad noticed it, but they never really did anything to help cultivate it. They more like, just kind of said, oh, Maria does this. Isn't that nice? And they just kind of changed the subject, But what parents fail to do is they fail to really notice these things and the patterns of what these kids are doing. And once they notice a pattern and they see that this is what this kid's excited about and they're enjoying it, some people just think, well, this is it. But they don't really think, well, maybe, and talk with the kid, where do you want to do something with this? Now, I understand you can't make a decision, life decision, when you're like, you're like 5, okay? But certain things, like if the kid likes to dance, maybe that's where they are. And so they should be encouraged to take dance classes, and maybe they might do that for a few years. But maybe they're meant to be dancers. Maybe they're meant to be singers. Maybe they're meant to be actresses. Maybe they're meant to be scientists. Some kids like those little science kits and whatever it is that the kid but parents need to pay attention to these things. And then also times, parents are more concerned about putting their kids into activities that makes them look good. Like, I see nothing wrong with people who want to put their kids in a private school if they feel as though it's truly giving them, the kid, the proper education and the time and attention. Because, public schools are, generally overcrowded. And some, private schools tend to be a little bit less in numbers in the classroom. So maybe they're getting more attention. And for parents who truly feel that that's important, but some people are putting their kids in these schools only because of status, because it makes them look good. It makes them look like they're the, I'm the star parent. Look at me, I got all this stuff with my kid and put him through, this particular thing, and it becomes where they sometimes dehumanize their own kid just for social status. I've seen this a lot. So there's a lot of people who are walking around neglected and unloved and feeling unloved, and rightfully so, because some things that parents do to kids, it's not really love. It's just robotic, I don't know, things that are expected in society or whatever. And then some things, some parents don't even make an effort at all. They just try to put appearances up while their kids going out of school. Going out in public. Like sometimes, parents overdress their kids, or they might buy them all these expensive gadgets or whatever. They buy them a lot of material things, but oftentimes they're for the kid emotionally. And they might be giving these kids material things to pacify them so they get them out of their hair, or they could be buying them because they want to impress other people. So, kids can often get neglected and feel, like they're not being listened to. And there's a lot of talented people whose parents had every opportunity to observe what these kids really truly were, but failed to nourish the talents and the skills and what these kids were really meant to be. And that's unfortunate because a good parent pays attention, and not only pays attention, but they're proactive. I know, I would get compliments from older people, about certain things, and they would really encourage me. People were like, gosh, you're such a bright girl. You should do this. I remember somebody told me that I should be like a private investigator. I should be a lawyer. All these things that I kept thinking, that's so far out of my, scope of ever in any way desiring, But it was funny that people would notice certain things about me, but my parents didn't. And if they did notice, it was just something they shrugged their shoulders. I was never encouraged to, to do things. And if I did do anything, it was because I had to basically beg, plead, and whatever. It was always kind of an inconvenience to them, So I think my family kind of lost focus. I know my mom, when she was younger, she dreamt of, just like me, dreamt of, the family and how many she actually wanted 6 kids, but she got burned out, after she had my other sister. And then when she had me, she was just full of resent and pissed off and whatever. But, and so, when the reality check, when it became, she got her reality check, it was like, there really wasn't that much enthusiasm for kids, but, but they failed to acknowledge certain things. And then of course, they oftentimes, the parents are the ones who create the abusive environment, especially in my case where my siblings were encouraged, whether that was deliberate or it was done inadvertently because of my mom's inability to keep her, feelings to herself, talking about, how I was not a planned pregnancy, blah, 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 blah. You're planting the seeds into these little monsters, right? And so you plant the seeds into these little monsters, and oftentimes that's another issue that parents do. They create division in their own household by keeping secrets, talking about one sibling or one of their children, the scapegoated kid among the other kids, and then they create this division in the household. Okay, that's not their responsibility. Their responsibility as a parent is to make sure that each child has a nurturing environment and to encourage each other, and keep this particular family structure in line. Instead, there's like bickering, division. They somehow, support competitive type behaviors within the children, this kind of stuff, and it's wrong, So not everybody is meant to be a parent. Just because you have, the biological, resources to produce children doesn't mean that you should be a parent, And so I think a lot of people are encouraged to have children, and they really shouldn't. They shouldn't have any children. Not every married person should have kids. Not everybody should be a parent. There might be social pressure to do that, but think about what you're really doing and the damage that you're causing by bringing a kid into the world that you really don't have time for, that you really can't give anything more than material possessions, because kids need more than material possessions to, fully thrive in life. They need time, they need attention, they need you to pay attention so that they can flourish into the direction that they're meant to be. If you are somebody who always admired lawyers and your kid shows an interest in the performing arts, okay, but you're putting pressure on your kid to fill out your dreams, you're abusing your kid. You're trying to force this kid into something that they will never truly excel at. And if they do excel, they're basically suffering inside and putting up with, overexerting themselves when they really shouldn't. The idea in life is to improve each generation. Maybe you can't do that monetarily, but maybe you could do it in forms of mindset. Think of all the emotional baggage that each person carries around. Okay, we all have to have it. Okay, that's one of the shitty parts about living on this earth. We all have to deal with some level of baggage. Okay, but if you are a parent, you need to analyze your life and say, well, what can I do to not bring back or carry on this tradition that's obviously within me? What can I do to not allow this new offspring to suffer this, and this? I don't ever want to. I know that there are certain things that my family did to me that I would never ever want to do with my son. Just the mental abuse, and then the disregard for my particular desires or whatever, ignoring certain things, or even harassing me all the time. I would never even dream of doing that to somebody. That's a very twisted and sick way of living, and a lot of people have accepted this sort of stuff as normal. So when you start looking at the ignorance within a certain family, and there's plenty of it out there, then it's your responsibility to say, I'm not going to let my kid do this. I'm not going to do this. And it does take true love in order to put that in motion. Because if you don't really have true love for somebody, it's almost impossible to make sure that they're going to have a nurturing environment. Love has to play a role in that, and that's something you can't force. You can't force love. You can't. So think very carefully before you start cranking those kids out. Just because all your friends are having kids doesn't mean you have to have one. It's better to not have one, to bring one in the world that's gonna that you're gonna end up making make them suffer. Think a little bit more about that. Think about why you really want a kid. Before you do that, because it's a responsibility that is a lifelong responsibility. Just because they're over the age of 18, they're out of your house or whatever, doesn't mean that you still aren't going to have a heartfelt connection. And if they come to you after they're grown and they need your help in any way, and if you're able to give it to them, then you should be able to give it to them if they ask you. Because that's what families do. They support each other. They don't run each other over. Okay, they don't run each other over. They don't tear each other down. It's just about proper conduct, really, is what it's about. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I'm very glad that she made that video. We all deal with it. We all deal with the pain, the trauma, the betrayal, all these things that we've dealt with as a TI, and whatever you deal with, whether it's from your family or another, another outside source or whatever garbage that was tossed your way, I think it's my responsibility, my spiritual responsibility, to let it lie there. Meaning, I can see what other people, the trash and the filth that other people carry. I don't want any part of it. I reject those things, and I will make sure that my conduct is always corrected. I'm grateful that I'm a person who can self-correct. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons why I don't like to associate with certain people, because certain people are nothing more than baggage. And baggage is never going to be a productive thing. I prefer to be autonomous in my life for that reason. Come what may, whatever. The thing is that I don't like attachments to other people, and if I do develop an attachment, it's because I want to, because I feel as though these people are going to add something to my life, bringing joy into my life, and those are the kind of people I want, and they're rare, but I would rather be by myself than be with narcissistic people, or be with people who I think are sexually perverse, or whatever. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. If those are your sexual delights, you go right ahead. But I don't have any. There's no compatibility there. Okay, there's no compatibility, with that sort of person and me and myself. So that's what I choose to do. You know what I mean? I want my life to be about different things, and that's just how it is. You gotta set boundaries. And you gotta care. You gotta care. In order to be a good parent, you gotta care. I wish I could go back in time sometimes, but I couldn't have controlled. There was no way I had any control over what happened to me, in the workplace throughout those years. I would have never thought that that people would do something like this, Like, I know when I was younger and I would experience issues at work, now that I'm looking back and I realize my family was behind this, I know that I used to always believe, because like I said, I've always studied this information, and I understood that there's laws in place, there's certain behavior and conduct that employers are supposed to adhere to. And I thought in order to have those positions, you had to know those things. You had to be able to and willing to exercise those things. I didn't have any idea that the workplace was filled with so much corruption and people basically getting by and stuff. I really thought people earned their positions. I was a naive girl, okay, in certain ways. Okay, I didn't really understand corruption. I mean, I understood it existed, but I really thought that if you were somebody in human resources, you were there, you were protecting the company, your information was private, people, you were not supposed to allow other people to make phone calls or have any contact with it. You're not even supposed to tell people when they go out to lunch, okay, seriously, because of the stalking issue, I thought that I was safe at work. I believed that, and now I'm like, wow, so I've learned a lot, and And so, anyway, I'm just in that talkative mood. I'm glad she made that video. I will put her video into the description box if you care to take a look at it. I'm going to wrap this one up. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.